century. Today, we journey into the fascinating topic of TriGunas and personality psychology, where ancient Indian wisdom meets contemporary psychological science. We are pleased to welcome Dr. K.P. Naachimuthu, Assistant Professor of Psychology at PSG College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore, with over 15 years of experience and training from premier institutes like IIMS and NIMHANS. He offers valuable perspectives on psychological well-being, ecological intelligence, and social responsibility. Let's now hand over to Dr. Naachimuthu to begin the session. Sir, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you. So, namaskar and good evening to all of you. So, I'm happy to be amongst you all today. What we will do today is we'll explore something that I believe is more relevant to each and every one of us. That is the TriGunas and its role in the psychological makeup of each and every one of us here. Since I had some difficulty in terms of like slide sharing, I have asked the organizers to do it. So can we have the next slide, please? Slides
Sir, please go to the next slide.
Okay, so let's get started with a few quick questions. Ask for yourself whether you have asked yourself certain questions like this. Why am I the way I am? Why do some days feel full of energy, clarity, and joy? And sometimes few other days are a little bit confused. It's just plain, and I'm stuck, not able to decide on anything. And did you even think about why do we react to certain situation in one particular way or this particular way? And these aren't just simple questions. These are most of the fundamental inquiries of a human. And we will navigate into all these things today. We will have a glimpse of all these things by understanding what trigunas are, because understanding what is happening with us, our own inner blueprint, can make us better, meaningful, and our journey will be more richer. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the actuals that we're going to talk about. Today, we're going to discuss more into the timeless piece of wisdom from our Indian knowledge system to understand these inner dynamics, because this is something interesting for us who studies behavior. And we're going to explore the concepts of trigunas, three fundamental energies, or sometimes people refer to as qualities such as sattva, rajas, and tamas. These aren't like just old philosophical terminologies. They are insightful keys to understand our moods, our motivations, our personality, even our well-being. So before we can truly understand and appreciate trigunas, we should have some basic understanding of the philosophical system from which they came from. Because when we try understanding the philosophical system, it might sound a little academic, but it is our rich cultural knowledge, and I request each and everyone here to invest some time and mind to learn about it. So we will learn about Sankhya school a little bit before we come to Trigunas. So Sankhya school, which is attributed to our sage Kapila, is one of the 6 orthodox schools, Astika Darshanas of Indian philosophy. The very word Sankhya in itself means enumeration or to count, reflecting the systematic approach to categorizing the principles which are tattvas of existence. And Sankhya, it is a philosophy of dualistic realism. Two ultimate and independent realities, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is your consciousness, and Prakriti, it's your primordial nature or the matter that we mentioned. But next slide, please. And we will get into it in detail, step by step. One, talking about Purusha. Purusha, as we were mentioning, it's a principle of pure consciousness. Purusha, it's an awake principle, or the interesting way to put it is like the silent witness, the pure, untainted consciousness. And sometimes they also tell, Sankhya philosophy especially talks about the plurality of Purushas also. And it is inherently inactive. That is why we call it as a kartha. And it is devoid of attributes. So nirguna, in the sense, it is not being composed of any gunas. Though it can be reflected through them, it is nirguna and it is unchanging. And maybe to put it very simple, think of Purusha as a light that illuminates a room. It is not the room, it is not the objects within the room, it is the light in itself. Otherwise, to say it is just the nature is pure awareness. Otherwise, we call it as Chit or Chaitanya. And sometimes we always have a misinterpretation, or there is a wrong understanding that bondage of Purusha, it is not real, it is more apparent. And there's also a mention, liberation is the realization of his distinctiveness from Prakriti. Whatever you see around the nature that is changing versus what is Purusha, which is never changing. These are different. This very understanding is what is essential, is we will talk about. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, coming to Prakriti. Prakriti is the unmanifest. We said like its nature or the matter. And it is a substance form which the entire material universe, including, say, our mind, our body, they evolve from this. It is singular, eternal, and it is active. And though this activity is for the sake of Purusha to experience an eventual liberation. And please understand, uh, Prakriti is more like sometimes referred to as Jada, but it possesses the potential for all forms and activities. And this Prakriti, the nature that we are talking about, the matter that we are talking about, is constituted by three fundamental attributes or forces in a state of perfect equilibrium. And these are trigunas or trigunas that we refer to, sattva, rajas, and tamas. When it is not getting manifested, we refer to this state as avyakta. These gunas are perfectly balanced and there are no creation at all in that state. That's avyakta. Gunas are balanced. Next slide, please. Okay, here comes a question. I said like Purusha is inactive. When Purusha is inactive, how come evolution is happening? For which Sankhya explains it through a concept of Sannidhya Matra, which means near proximity. The presence of Purusha, like a magnet near the iron fillings, it disturbs the equilibrium of the gunas within the Prakriti. And this is not direct action. The very presence is actually acting as a catalyst. That's what we call as Sannidhya Matra. So how evolution happens is explained through this. Prakriti then begins the evolutionary, we call it as the evolutionary dance, unfolding the universe for a dual purpose concerning the Purushas. One purpose is Bhoga. Bhoga here is to provide a field of experience for the Purusha, to witness the variety of Prakriti's manifestations. One is Bhoga. Two, Apavarga, which ultimately is to facilitate your Purusha's discriminative wisdom, leading to liberation. So this is the two we are talking about when it comes to dual purpose concerning the Purusha. And talking about the evolution of Tattva from the Prakritis, maybe if you're keen about understanding those, we can talk about it. Otherwise, we can skip it. Next slide, please. So this will talk about the evolution of tattvas from where the each and everything came up to, which gave rise to what. Maybe if you have some time, we can at least have an understanding of how this evolution of tattvas from prakriti happened. Because we said the very presence of Purusha is creating a disturbance in gunas, right? And once the gunas are disturbed, there comes evolution, correct? Here, the first evolute from Prakriti when gunas are disturbed. It is number one, the buddhi or the cosmic intellect. This cosmic intelligence is the first sprout of manifestation. And as you know, it's predominantly sattvic in its pure state, this buddhi. And at an individual level, buddhi is a faculty of discrimination of what is right, what is wrong, judgment, decision making, understanding. And it is the finest aspect of our what we call as inner instrument, antakarana. It determines our goals and values. And from this buddhi arises ahankara. And this ahankara, to put it simple, it is a principle of individuation. It is about the sense of I-ness, self-identity. It is a principle that creates a feeling of being, I am different from another person. So the sense of identity, this is me. But sometimes we see it as negative. Ahankara is not inherently negative, please understand. It is a necessary evolute for individual experience. However, when we start identifying ourselves wrongly, this body is me, this thought is me, when we start identifying false identification of self, there comes the suffering, or we call it as ashmita, as becomes a source of suffering, a wrong identification that this body is me, this thought is me. So ahankara is not inherently negative, but the false identification is a source of suffering here. And this ahankara further, it is further differentiated based on the predominance of gunas. If suppose like you can see the different types of ahankara given here, satvika ahankara or rajasika and tamsika. In satvika ahankara, you can see what when the satvika ahankara predominates, it gives rise to the mind, which is a faculty of thinking, feeling, and even your doubts that traces in your mind. All these are the role of this mind. Then the other element that it gives rise to, five jnana indriyas, otherwise what we call as cognitive senses, five cognitive senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, right? And the five karma indriyas, which is like organs of action. When rajasika ahankara predominates, and here rajasika, as we say, it is the energy or the dynamism for the manifestation of both sattvika and tamasika. In itself, they don't have an energy, they need an energy from outside. So put it very simple, it doesn't directly produce anything, but energizes the process, rajasika. Tamasika ahankara, when this predominates, this gives rise to five tanmantras. Tanmantras, these are essence of our sensory experience. And from this five tanmantras, we have this gross elements, which is like five panchamahabhutas. We have akasha for sabda, we have vayu for the touch, sparsha, then the fire, then water, and earth. So all put together, if you can see, it is 24 tattva and 23 which evolved from Prakriti plus the Prakriti itself, 24 tattvas. Because we need to understand this evolutionary framework. It is very crucial. It's not something which is abstract in itself. They are the very fabric that evolved from the Prakriti, our mind, intellect, and Ahankara. These are the core components of our psychological makeup. So we need to have an understanding of this because it is our knowledge system, and having an understanding will always help us in at least understanding the other philosophy better, or to understand other knowledge that is coming from outside, appreciate it. And see, all these are products of Prakriti and they're intrinsically constituted and they're influenced by the gunas. As I said, that comes first, gunas comes first. Now we will talk about the heart of the matter. Gunas, three gunas. This is a very hard that we're going to talk about. TriGunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And in Sankhya, it is clearly mentioned that these are born of Prakriti, like we were mentioning, and these gunas are not static, these are dynamic. They're interacting forces. Say, imagine, I think you remember the first slide, interacting ropes, ropes. We are interweaving all these three. Sometimes one will dominate, the other recedes, right? So everything in the manifest universe, from a, say, stone, rock, to a plant, animal, to a human thought, an emotion, or to an action, everything is a combination of all these three gunas, but in varying proportions. And on the screen, you can see the Sankhya Karika verse 13. It actually describes the quality of these three gunas. Wonderful verse that we can always refer to. Sattvam lagu prakasham istam upastambakam chalam cha. So if you can read through, it will talk about what are the qualities of these gunas. So it will talk about sattva guna, which is light, lagu, or buoyant. It is illuminating. It's an embodiment of clarity, purity. Whereas Rajas, it is more a state of turbulence, state of disturbance, exciting, or always mobile movement. It's a state which involves some kind of movement and disturbance. Whereas in Tamas, it is mentioned as Guru Varanakam, which is heaviness. It is more enveloping. That's how our teachers explain this. Next slide, please. And we will talk about each and every guna separately in the next coming slides. Okay, Sattva, the first guna that we're talking. Sattva is a principle of purity, harmony, and illumination. And as we were mentioning Prakasham in the verse which was mentioned, so illuminating, it is more wholesome, as mentioned in Gita, verse 14. Sattva is characterized by lightness, laguta. It is personified or embodiment of clarity, purity, knowledge, happiness, peace, harmony, and it is also mentioned as it reflects consciousness more clearly. And look at the psychological manifestation of sattva guna, the cognitive manifestation, if we can see, the wisdom, jnana, clarity of thought, sharp intellect, or knowledge-seeking behavior, that being truthful, all these are cognitive manifestation of the sattva guna. When it comes to emotional manifestation, happiness, joy, which is mentioned as sukha, ananda, or peace, contentment, compassion, kindness, love, faith. So all these are emotional manifestations of sattva guna, looking at it from a psychological lens. When it comes to behavior, how it is, say, shown in the behavior, demonstrated in the behavior, ethical conduct, self-control, and they decide on what to do, how to do, how much to do. They have a very clear line of control, which otherwise we call as discipline, altruism, calmness, steadiness, and the element of being grounded, humility, orderliness, and they perform duties without getting attached to the very result of the actions. So the interesting thing, all these sounds positive about sattva guna, but there is an element here, because even sattva guna, though it is desirable, it is little binding in nature because it binds through attachment to happiness. Because we said it's sugar, the joy, ananda, everything is okay, but there is an element of attachment to happiness that can happen, or attachment to knowledge, people searching for knowledge. So it is still binding. An individual may become complacent in their goodness, probably, or in their intellectual understanding, still identifying with these sattvic qualities rather than the pure consciousness, So that's why later on they will always tell all these gunas are interacting. Something can be dominant, something can be recessive, but the point is going beyond gunas becoming Gunadita is the ultimate goal that our literature actually talks about. Next slide, please. So this is about the Sattva Guna. In the next slide, we will talk about the Rajasic or Rajoguna, which is the quality of activity, passion, dynamism. And if you can refer to Gita 14 chapter, you can actually see a beautiful verse there. Ragatmakam Viddhi Trishna Sangha Samudbhavam. So here it talks about Rajas to be more a nature of passion, which is more arousing, craving, a kind of attachment, always in movement or motion, energy, ambition, desire, or say agitation and restlessness. All these are force that overcomes your inertia that we will talk in tamasic, or which drives an action. And if these gunas, if you have to see it from a psychological lens as to how it manifests, one, the cognitive aspect is like more in too much of involvement in thinking, into processing something, into planning, scheduling, strategizing something. But sometimes on the other end, too much of this, or sometimes an element of distraction spoils the entire process of thinking or planning. There comes a fickleness or turbulence, and probably you would be at times too much engrossed, or your mind is completely absorbed into some thoughts back of your mind, some anxiety, something that is disturbing you, something that is draining you, pulling you down. So all these are some cognitive manifestations. When it comes to emotional manifestation, the passion, or when we will talk about kleshas later, the pancha kleshas, afflictions, these also will come here as a psychological, emotional manifestation. Passion, desire, which is kama, ambition, greed, lobha, anger, which is krodha, attachment, which is raga, or envy, pride. All these are emotional manifestation of rajas. And when it comes to behavior, as we were mentioning earlier, cognitive and emotional put together, when it's exhibited in the form of behavior, one intense activity. They are striving for certain goals, always wanting to achieve something, running behind something, more competitive, seeking more power, pleasure, and more potential for anger, aggression, impulsivity. And they are being driven by desire to get more, not really contented with what they currently have. They are not mindful of experiencing what they currently have, instead, asking for more, wanting for more. And even here, Rajas also has an element of binding through the attachment to actions. That is, this Rajas, sometimes when it is dominant in us, when we actually put in our effort into some activity, into some project, we always feel like we want the output or outcome or the result in the way we want. And if it is not happening, we feel bad, we feel down. The individual becomes more entangled in the fruits of their action. They are driven by, say, endless desires, and the need to achieve and acquire more. So this is one of the binding nature of this guna, rajas. Next one. Next slide, please. And tamas, most of the time, what happens is tamas, when we talk about tamas, sometimes people always tell tamas is dark, inertia, ignorance. This is no good. Think from the other lens also, because in Tantra philosophy, they actually present the same tamoguna in a more positive way. Let's say I am a lazy person, let's say, and if I'm a lazy person, I will always find an easy way to do some task. I'll find a smart way to do something without wasting too much of time. So, which means tamas also has got an element which can be used for our growth and development. So, it's not always negative, not always dark. It is not something which is not appreciated. So, tamas, as we have it on the slide, it's a quality of inertia, darkness, ignorance, and There is a beautiful verse again, Ajnanam Javitti Mohanam. Here it will talk about the tamas guna, which says it's born out of ignorance, illusion, and it is an embodiment of, say, laziness, negligence. It's characterized by, say, darkness, heaviness, resistance to change. I don't want to take any new steps. I feel like always lying down, take just rest, do nothing. And I feel okay just lying down, being no productive at all. So all this lethargy and an element of confusion, all these are the characteristics of this guna. And looking into the psychological manifestation, you can see it on the screen there. Dullness of intellect, because we are not actually giving any inputs. We are not learning something new. We are not looking for some new source of knowledge. We are not inquisitive. We are not actually thirst for knowledge. It's missing here. Dullness of intellect, or otherwise we can say there is a darkness in the sense there is an inertia, no movement, no effort, no one step forward to learn, and inability to discern or discriminate. Okay, this is the right knowledge. This is not. This is the right source. So that's one of the manifestation of stubbornness, lack of motivation, and you can see ignorance, delusion, stubbornness, which again has an element of forgetfulness, because only by doing we will remember things. When we don't do at all, we don't actually. So element of forgetfulness also comes in as a cognitive manifestation of thoughts. And when it comes to emotional manifestation, emotional, you can see a grief, sogam, bayam, depression, or a sadness, always like down in terms of energy, always moving around as if life is no good, nothing is going good, no one is around me who is trustworthy. And we slowly get into an attachment to negativity. This is actually some of the emotional manifestation. When it comes to behavioral, behavioral carelessness is one element. And one of the core behavioral aspects that we generally talk when it comes to tamas is procrastination, which has an element of carelessness, which has an element of laziness, which also has an element of ignorance into it, dullness, sleepiness, inaction. And sometimes this, when we actually deal with people who are addict to few substances, be it alcohol or whatever, and we actually see this tamasic nature a lot. And sometimes within this tamasic, we also have an element of rajasic also, like having destructive tendencies sometimes. So tamas, as we said, like this also has a binding nature. Tamas binds through negligence or indolence or sleep, and it stops us from discriminating actions, or it can lead us into wrong actions. People avoid taking responsibility, they avoid putting in effort. Sometimes they are more resistant to new ideas, either out of fear or their stubbornness. And you can see chronic procrastination in such people. And look into the place they work. Just observe their workstation, the place they work, the desk, or wherever they are, their living area. The environment could be little cluttered, little depressing, not so energetic, not so well lit. And look into the, and for each of these gunas that I'm talking about, please also look into the diet, what kind of food they take, because that is also one element or one concept that we have to study. When we study about trigunas, we should also study about tridoshas, vata, pitta, kapha, because it is mutually having an influence on each other. The food that we take, how it affects how our mind operates, our gunas, or these gunas can have an influence on the choice of food that we make. And having said these are the three gunas, these Three gunas are never found in isolation, which we already mentioned. They are always present together, but their proportion only varies. And because of the change in the proportion, there is a diversity in terms of nature, in terms of the personality makeup each and everyone is presenting. And the interesting part is the dominance is not fixed. It keeps shifting. It keeps shifting, like we were mentioning, it keeps shifting based on so many other elements. One, based on the food, based on the environment we live, based on the lifestyle we maintain, based on our actions, thoughts, based on the company that we maintain. So understanding this dynamic interplay is to keep our is the key to understanding our personality fluctuations. And this understanding of dynamics will help in transformation. That's the base. And sometimes this is not found when it comes to our modern personality psychology. What we can do is we can also have a quick understanding of these panchakleshas and tridoshas, because these are very closely related concepts which can have an influence on our psychophysiological existence. Because gunas more of psychological. When it comes to tridoshas, these are psychophysiological. So we'll talk about first pancha kleshas. Otherwise, they use a wonderful word, afflictions, which are like sources of suffering, as Yoga Sutras mentioned. So Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they talk about these five root causes of suffering, the kleshas, which are more intensified by the predominance of rajas and tamas. So there are five. One, avidya, which means ignorance. It is not just lack of information, but our misapprehension of reality. We are, like our elders always said, we are mistaking the impermanent for permanent, impure for pure. Sometimes we take sufferings for happiness. So all these are misapprehension of our reality. So tamas is the primary guna which fosters this avidya, which stops us from having that clarity of what is reality. And rajas, it plays a role in terms of distraction. So this is first klesha. Second klesha is asmita, which is like otherwise called, to put it very simple, it is egoism, or otherwise I amness. So identification of the power of seeing with the power of instrument of seeing. Like for instance, we always say, I did this. This is my achievement, without having an understanding that we are instruments. Things are happening through us, not by us. Just very understanding that a false sense of pride. I am this body, I am this mind. So this egoism or I amness, this ahamkara, when dominated by rajas, this inflates our asmita. And tamas can lead to rigid, unchanging sense of self, because we already said tamas again is more lazy. They didn't want to change, resistance to change. So when tamas becomes so rigid, I don't want to change from this status quo. So Ashmita is the second klesha. Three is raga. I think we were mentioning about this earlier. Raga, which is like attachment or craving, because today this word is talked about a lot, craving for something, going out, eating even at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., like having some food. So this clinging to pleasant experiences and objects. And please understand, it arises from the memory of your past pleasure. I had it earlier. I was feeling good. It felt good having it. So this past pleasure, the memory of the past pleasure, that gives rise to raga. And it is driven by the pursuit of pleasure. I want to have it again, experience it again. While the fourth one, dvesha, aversion or otherwise repulsion, this is based on the memory of the past pain. I was not treated well by so and so. And I wasn't having a good, pleasant experience then when I visited this place, when I had this. So this memory of the past pain can manifest into dvesha, which can manifest as anger, hatred, avoiding someone, avoiding certain places. So this is dvesha. The fifth klesha that we have to talk about is abhinivesha, which is clinging to life or fear of death. These people, like, they wish to live not in the actual terms. Like we always tell, people always wish to live, I mean, die happily, but they forget to live happily. See, this Abhinivesha, they are like when they get old, when they feel like they're become weak, anytime and every time they have this very fear, like I might go away from this place. This deep-seated identification with the current existence of this body, this creates this clinging to life. And this is fueled by all the three gunas. Tamas, deep-seated ignorance, fear, because when we are born, we are sure that we will leave. But still, this deep-seated ignorance, it is stopping us from realizing that reality. And Rajas, through attachment to life activities, hey, it was nice being around, having people around, having something, eating something. So all these pleasure and all these activities, that is fueled. And when it comes to sattva, the third element which is fueling this abhinivesha, attachment to virtuous life. It was pleasant living, all peaceful. Why should I actually leave? I'll be here. So all the three gunas would fuel abhinivesha. And these are the kleshas. Gunas are the, say, if you can say, underlying soil in which the kleshas take root and flourish. A predominantly sattvic mind is less prone to all these kleshas, while rajasic and tamasic tendencies, they will amplify it, leading to the suffering and bondage. That is one of the reasons. The very goal of yoga is to weaken these kleshas, these impurities, and they start with an activity to cultivate this sattva guna into each and every one of us. That's base. The interesting thing, while your Ayurveda talks about balancing doshas, yoga here talks about, say, reducing or weakening the kleshas. But Sankhya, even beyond that, it talks about becoming a gunatita. Gunatita, someone who goes beyond all these gunas, not getting into this defined set of gunas. These are the gunas that are dominant. And since we mentioned about Ayurveda, we'll also talk about these, another set of interesting and more interlinked concept to understand Trigunas. Tridoshas, Vada, Pitta, Kapha, because we need to understand it along with the Trigunas. As we were telling, Trigunas, they're primarily psychological. And to put it in a philosophical term, these are cosmic qualities that constitute Prakriti and all its evolutes, which includes mind also. Whereas Tridoshas, they are primarily psychophysiological principles. It governs the, say, functions of the body, and they also have the mental correlates, and they are derived from, we already mentioned about it, they are derived from the Panchamahabhutas. Say, there is a mention here on the slide, Vata, which is a principle of, say, motion, which is air and ether, Akash, which relates to what? Movement, say, creativity. Sometimes on the other side, nervousness that is experienced. Or Pitta, it is a principle of transformation, the fire and water element, which relates to metabolism, your digestion, or sometimes the anger emotion that we experience. Kapha, it's a principle which relates to stability, the calmness. Sometimes the emotional aspect of attachment also is linked to this. See, trigunas, as we're mentioning, these are the qualities. Tridoshas are more specific to biological functioning of an organism. And as I was already mentioning this before, gunas in the mind can influence doshas in the body. And same thing can happen otherwise also. Doshas in the body can have an influence on the gunas in the mind. And they are complementary systems for holistic well-being. That's one of the reason I thought I'll also talk about your doshas and also kleshas. And this holistic understanding will help us as to what is happening within us. Because gunas are, the way we call it is like gunas as the psychological blueprint of an individual. Okay, having an understanding of what these gunas are, the qualities are, how they get manifested in cognitive, emotional, or behavioral. Can we also talk about how we can actually practice these gunas? So, living a guna conscious life or having an inner harmony. If you want to feel more balanced, more joyful, and purposeful, our elders and teachers, they always say cultivate more sattva guna. But how do we actually do it? And this is the interesting thing about our Indian tradition. It's not just about mentioning about these things. They also gave us a model which is very clear, which has a grounded guidelines about how to do, what to do, the conscious choices that we can say practice to cultivate this guna. And here you have the list on the slide, right? Ahara. Ahara is the food that we eat, nourishing your sattva. Like we always mention, like you are literally what you eat, not just physically, but even in terms of energy, you're what you eat. So are we choosing food that promote life, that brings in vitality, that brings in strength, health, cheerfulness? Are we choosing which is fresh, wholesome food, natural, which is easily digestible food? Because these food can actually make our mind more clear, calm, and peaceful. Or are we choosing food that are too much like stimulants, stimulating, too bitter, salty, pungent, hot? Or are we choosing more spicy food, something which is like stimulant like a coffee? Sometimes these can actually possibly result in restlessness or irritability. So are we choosing food like this or something that can bring us a temporary burst of energy? Are we so choosing a food like that? Or are we choosing a tamasic food which is like stale, tasteless, overcooked, or processed food which possibly can make us feel dull, heavy, mentally like foggy? So what kind of food are we choosing? This is what is discussed in even Gita, or when they talk about a simple sattvic shift. Be mindful about what you choose to eat, what you choose to feed yourself. This is one. So, ahara is the first thing when it comes to guna conscious life. Second, vihara. Vihara is our lifestyle, the activities that we involve in. This can actually have a whole lot of impact on our uh, gunas balance. So, are we into sattvic lifestyle, wherein are we maintaining a regular and balanced daily routine? Like, for instance, like getting adequate restful sleep, feeling fresh after that when you wake up, or do we spend some time in the natural setting, engaging in activities that are more creative, uplifting, or meaningful activities? Or are we involving ourselves into always overly packed schedule, constantly rushing, and we are always in a chaotic environment which is loud, noisy, and we always engage ourselves with like more stimulating content, always engaged in something which is highly competitive activity, which sometimes leads to too much of stress, frustration? Are we of that person who is into that lifestyle, or the other tamasic lifestyle, wherein spending time in a more like dark, cluttered, depressing environment, more passive, which has got nothing new for us to offer, oversleeping or irregular sleeping? Are we into something like this? So if your answer is into any of these lifestyle, pause for a while, ask yourself, like, what is that you're actually doing with all these lifestyles that you're involved in? Probably you can think about, say, shifting, which can also help in shifting the energy for you. So third one, first ahara, then we spoke about the lifestyles or habits, vihara. Then it's about the sangha. Sangha, like Sangam Charanam Gacchami in Buddhism, they talk about. Sangha is the company that we keep. Are we nurturing sattvic connections? The people we surround ourselves with, they have a huge influence on our state of mind or your gunas balance. As we always say, energy is more contagious. Are we in a company, say, sattvic company, we call it a satsanga, which means, like, are we associating with people who generally are calm, they're more positive, they're kind, compassionate, they're more, say, inspiring and uplifting conversations you engage in? Are we into a company like that? Or are we into a company which is like generally they are agitated, overly competitive, overly dramatic, always gossiping, or they're focused on the material pursuits? I want more, I want to earn more money, get that, get this. So are they into too much of material pursuits? Or are we into a company which uh, is always like talks negative? They tend to be more cynical, always complaining, lazy, and they engage a lot in unhealthy and ethical practices. Are we into connections like that? Again, think about yourself and see where you can actually bring in a change in terms of the company that you maintain, because it's a choice you have who you spend time with, because time is something that you can gift as unique to anyone. So it's a choice that you make. And the fourth one that we can actually do, because our actions, it is not just about what we do, but how we do it and why we do it as an individual, even as institutions. When we talk about institutions, here actually comes our vision, mission, values, right? So we talk about practices, we talk about processes, we talk about purpose. Even here, they talk the same. That's Karma Yoga. Our actions and how we perform them. This is exactly what we are actually telling here. It is not just what we do, but how we do it and why we do it. That will have a huge influence on our gunas. Say, are we doing our duties and actions with, say, dedication or mindfulness? Maybe you could have seen someone like eating fast, not even relishing the food that they had. And they would say they're very busy, they have a lot of meeting. But please understand, pause for a while, ask yourself this question: why am I actually running to make money? Is the end of the day for this food? So am I respecting that food that is in front of me? Am I spending that quality time for the food, which is the nourishing element, which gives me life? Annam Brahma, right? Food is God. So are we someone who's actually more mindful about what we are doing? Are we doing things with the spirit of, say, service, without being too much of obsessed, attached to the rewards that we get, the specific outcomes from this effort and time that I put in? Am I a person like that? Or am I someone who is more driven by, say, personal desires, ego gratification, the name and fame that I would get, the fortune that I would make? So am I a person who's actually into that? Because the more ego gratification is involved in, more of personal desires coming in, and this can actually lead to stress or otherwise entanglement. Because everything we see only from that lens, what is that I'm going to get? What is in it for me? Or am I a person who actually is like someone who's uh, more dominant in terms of tamasic, where I'm lazy to take any action? I'm a little careless about handling things, handling people, more of negligence, which results in, and every time I miss an opportunity, stay back, ask yourself this question: did I handle it very seriously? Was there any element of negligence? Was there an element of carelessness in the way I handled that? If the answer is yes, probably there's a tamasic element coming in here. So always when it comes to acting upon certain things, ask why I'm doing it, how am I doing it. This will actually give you an understanding of what gunas are dominant in our behavior. And the fifth element that we talk about in terms of guna conscious life, which is sadhana, the inner practices. And you have Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, which talks about the sadhana. We can learn about that. Or to put it very simple, uh, we directly work on cultivating our inner landscape. Actually, regular inner practice, like we take bath every day, brush every day. Are we doing something for the inner landscape that we are living with to bring in a balance of these gunas? And some of the activities, like we were telling, like Ashtanga Yoga talks about it, whether it is meditation. And people, the moment they talk about meditation, they want to do meditation to calm their mind, or to cultivate an inner peace, or to increase focus. It's not just meditation, even work can be a meditation in how you do it. Or even breathing can be more meditative or mindful. Because when we have a breathing trouble, then we will understand the value of this, how it contributes to our very existence. Can we do a mindful breathing, a gentle sense that you can experience? Are we becoming more aware of your breath? Allow it to like more slow, deeper, which can actually have a calming effect in you. Am I doing it? So Sattvic through asanas, meditation, or say mindful breathing, or some of the practices that people often get into today, regularly acknowledging and appreciating the good things that you have in life, which is like practicing gratitude, or reading books, uplifting books, inspiring biographies, or today one of the practice that we see around us, like affirmations, using positive sounds or words which can actually create harmonious, like what we call as inner vibrations. So we can do that as well as a sattvic practices. And now comes our element of personality psychology, modern personality psychology, and the TriGuna model. Because we see some of the models in personality psychology from the lens of guna. Because guna model, they actually offer a unique and incredibly rich perspective when it comes to uh, comparison with your modern ones. And some of these modern theories or models and frameworks, which you're aware of, one, the five factor model, or the big five trace ocean, which you gently called as openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, right? And similarly, in positive psychology, we also focus on few elements like, say, flourishing, flow, character strengths, optimal happiness. So these are some of the contributions of your modern psychology. Let's see how your gunas might resonate with all these things. Sattva guna, they actually align so beautifully with many ideals of your positive psychology field. Either talk about, say, resilience, optimism, optimal happiness, or uh, people talk a lot about this Maslow's concept of self-actualization, right? Or his own concept of peak experience. All these are connected to the Sattvic guna.
Excuse me,
And
sir.
yes, sir.
I think you are discussing the previous slide, and what we are seeing is the next slide.
I think this they moved on. Like previous slide,
Yeah.
please.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll come to this little later. Next slide, please. No, the previous one. Go for the previous one. Okay, it is not mentioned in the slide, but still, we'll talk about the personality models that you're familiar with, the Big Five personality. In terms of Big Five, a strong sattvic influence might look like, maybe you can go back and refer to the Big Five model or other positive psychology theories and frameworks, and you can relate it with what we are actually discussing now. So the Big Five model, you can see high agreeableness or high conscientiousness and low on neuroticism, which actually talks about the sattva guna that we just were discussing about: kindness, compassion, cooperation, discipline, responsibility, stability, freedom from anxiety. So all these are like strong sattva influence. Similarly, there are so many other models. You talk about like Carl Jung's theory of personality type, where we can discuss about extraversion, neuroticism. So all these actually will talk about how the rajas show up as traits associated with what high extraversion, being more assertive, seeking stimulation, sensation seeking behavior, strong drive for achievement, or type A personality you should be familiar with, which is more ambitious, competitive, time urgency, sometimes like hostile and aggressive behavior. All these rajas guna. And when it comes to tamasic guna and the modern insights, you can bring back the same Big Five model for your reference, because that's one of the most acceptable model. And today, if you see the number of assessments that are taken in India, close to 20-25 lakhs assessments of Big Five and MBTA are taken every year. That's why I took only two modern personality psychology or personality models and framework here. And when there is an imbalance of tamas, this can actually seen as a traits like low conscientiousness, which means more of procrastination will be seen, lack of discipline, carelessness, lethargic, or low openness to experience, where they get manifested in terms of resistance to change. They lack, say, curiosity to learn something new, or tendencies towards, like, say, apathy, like feelings of hopelessness, or sometimes your learned helplessness also will come in, which they have a strong tamasic quality in it. And why is that this Trigona model is so unique, rich? This is exactly what is shown on the slide here. The previous slide is missing anyway. Uh, what makes this model so unique, rich, and holistic? Number one, unlike the other model, this model is more cosmic and universal. It describes the fundamental qualities of all the nature, all of the nature actually. It gives us a holistic, interconnected view about ourselves within the large cosmos. It is not telling personality as an isolated one. Instead, it is making a universal picture it's given. Number two, it is more dynamic. It emphasizes our capacity to consciously influence on the gunas imbalance or balance through our choices, our practices. Because modern psychology, they acknowledge that personality can change, but here, how do you change it, and what kind of choices that you can make to bring in a balance is given in guna model. And there is an element of a spiritual dimension also here in Guna model, because it is embedded within a spiritual context where the ultimate aim is not just to be a well adjusted person. It is not the only objective, but also to be liberated, to experience a state of freedom beyond just the influence of all these gunas. And this transformative spiritual goal is not actually present in other models of personality, Western models. And this is more prescriptive and also practical. Like we're mentioning, they also provide you a clear roadmap or a guideline as to how do you do it, how do you practice it, how do you grow, how do you transform. So all these are mentioned for us. So the how to element is built in for living a balanced and fulfilling life when it comes to guna model when compared to all others. And it focuses on the, say, underlying energies. It is not like focused on the traits that is observed on the surface. It is not about just observable behavior. It is also more about dealing with underlying energies. That's why we were also trying to bring in the tridoshas and kleshas element also. The underlying energetic qualities are also given more emphasis here. This allows for a more fundamental level of understanding and intervention if we uh, intend to bring in a change. So, so we are not actually keeping away modern psychology or the theories and models that we have. They offer invaluable lessons for specific aspects of personality. But Trigona model actually gives a huge framework, or otherwise to put it, these are mirror that our elders have given us for us to reflect on what is happening, which can actually bring in a potential transformation in each and every one of us. If we start observing this, observing and reflecting is what is missing generally. Our people will always tell like gunas or talking about all these Indian knowledge system. They're not actually a historical artifact. Please understand. These are practical toolkit. These are toolkits that are given for self-awareness, self-mastery, or otherwise called self-transcendence. So we need to see it from that lens. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next one. Okay. So as we were saying, it is a toolkit like how we use in terms of any inner transformation or physical transformation activities. This model, this framework is a toolkit that is given to each and every one of us. And by understanding how our gunas, tendencies, and choosing our path to cultivate sattva, we can actually handle the complexities of life with greater clarity or balance and purpose. And please understand, knowing oneself is a lifelong journey. And knowing thyself is at a deepest level, not at a shallow level. Like some of our teachers always mention, we are co-creators. There is a creator, we are co-creator, and we have to become a conscious co-creator of each and every experience instead of sitting and blaming why I am going through all these things. Because number one, I don't have any control over what is happening to me, but I have all the control as to how I respond to things happening to me. So I need to be a co-creator of my experience, what I will go through, whether it is happiness or whatever. Let me be a choice maker in that instead of just becoming a puppets of our guna conditioning. So instead of blaming on the gunas and tendencies, can we actually get into becoming a choice maker in life? That is one thing that we have to think about. And the very journey of understanding and consciously working on the gunas, as we are mentioning, it is a lifelong sadhana. It needs discipline, dedicated practice, because the very awareness about us, our existence, it needs a lot of effort from our end. The more you understand about yourself, the more connected you will be with things around you. Or other ways to put it in a very, say, colloquial style, anyone who can love oneself, anyone who stays connected with oneself will be with connection with others. Or if you are at peace with yourself, you can be at peace with anyone in the world. So it needs a dedicated practice, more deeper practice is needed. And the more you learn through this practice, the interesting element that happens there will also be unlearning. When we want a refinement to happen, there should be learning and also unlearning happening, which takes us to a highest possible self that we can be. So this ever increasing awareness about oneself, the harmony with oneself and things around us, people around us, it actually makes us understand the very purpose of why we are here. I'll stop here for some time. If there is anything that we can discuss in terms of TriGunas or personality models, please, if you have any questions or anything to tell, please go ahead about personality theories or the connections that we can see, or please share your insights because you would have your own understanding about how you see TriGunas and how you relate it to any existing personality framework models.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Participants can unmute and you can interact, please.
Sir, may I?
Please, sir.
Regarding the first part, two aspects which I wanted to know is noted down during the uh, discussion. You
Sir.
told that Thomas has a positive aspect also. I mean, just like Bill Gates says, the
No, no, no,
toughest task, give it to a lazy person, he will get a shortest best solution. So I get that.
Ah,
Is Thomas also having an element of pain endurance, or because the shokars or the grief and pathos is there in
correct.
that, and you need to somehow in some point in life handle that emotion from within you, step
Hmm.
on it and come forward. There would be occasions in life that demand you to go through that grind. So, does handling tamas as a guna within yourself and an experience making you a better person through that? Like the Agatya says, "Tumbak kudathilittu thuyavanaaki vettai."
True,
You
true.
made me more refined by giving me more pain.
Hmm.
So, does the tamas also have a direct correlation in that manner, or is it also a tamas rajas combo? Because for pain endurance, you also need to have the ability to push yourself through your limits. So, a driven person who is passionate, who is having some objectives beyond the current state and aspirations, can only push himself or herself through that. So, is it dual or is it singular, or how do you see it? Just wanted to know this perspective. And then, for your second question, like our framework and understanding, I'll add on my insights also.
Okay. Thank you for this question, sir.
Thank you.
One, as we were mentioning, it doesn't operate in silos. They work together, and only in terms of the degree of variation they differ, or otherwise the proportion. So, as you were mentioning, Thomas, like in most of the Tantra philosophy, they say use this guna for growth and development. And it fits in so perfectly to the example that you were asking. And when it comes to endurance, it definitely needs the element of rajas because it's more about achievement orientation for which I'm moving towards. So rajas elements also will come in there. I need to endure this for me to experience something better than what I am today. And
Yes.
thanks for that. Bring in Agastya into this picture. It perfectly suits with what you're asking.
Thank you, sir. And regarding the framework which you asked, one
Yes.
correlation which I'm able to consistently see through life is in astrology. I mean, most of our tradition is actually having a deeper linkage in multiple aspects. In astrology, we have a Navagraha concept. Grahas are not
Yes.
exactly planets, but they are influences on you. So, and you see this peculiar formation of 3 into 3 matrix when you
Hmm.
see the Navagrahas in any temple. So just by being curious, I ended up onto this, that it is an interplay of three gunas and three objectives. You have the sattva, rajas, and tamas gunas, and icha shakti, jnana shakti, and kriya shakti as the shaktis which drive you based on the
Correct.
objectives. So, whether your inner energies are channeled by your desires, or it is governed by the knowledge aspects, or is it, I mean, it usually is like it doesn't work in silos, it's a combination. But when you're looking at this Navagraha structure, you'll find that if it is Jnana Shakti or Kriya Shakti, let's take Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti has three levels to it. If you see the centerpiece, it is, you do actually find that middle is sun. The other part, northern to the sun, you will have Saturn, and below that you will have Shukra. So basically speaking, the middle part, and you have Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Tamas is the stagnance, is the slow working. It is the final. It has to happen somewhere. So the karmic balance of your kriyas end up as Shani. Your Rajas, or the highly driven, passionate aspects, come from Shukra. It's passion driven, and you act on it. This is the Kriya Shakti's Rajas Guna. And the Sattva is unlimited, constantly radiating energy, pure energy, which is the sun, which is the center. Same way, you have parallels in your
Right.
Icha Shakti as well as Kriya Shakti. As far as Icha Shakti is concerned, the Sattva is actually Jupiter, Guru. The Rajas is actually the Buddha, or the quick knowledge grasper and the constant learner. And you have the I mean, as far as Jnana Shakti, this is Jnana Shakti, you have the Ketu, who is the liberator, ultimate liberator at the Tamas. And the same way, you find that this matrix also has the Icha Shakti, which is Mars holding the Sattva, and Moon, which is constantly changing, and which governs the Manas, having the Rajas position, and the ultimate manifester, or Rahu, holding the Tamas. So this framework, when you are correlating in different patterns and times in your life, you will exactly understand what is actually influencing you. So I'm not getting into too much details, but since we have touched upon the Trigunas in such detail, I thought adding one more dimension to it of Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, since we already spoke about Prakriti, makes a correlative sense. So that's my humble addition, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And just to complement what you were mentioning, if you're interested, maybe you should be familiar. Carl Jung's work on astrology. It's a wonderful work. Carl Jung on astrology. Beautiful work. You still have the book printed available online. You can go through that, and he'll talk about personality and astrology linkages.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from participants? Suresh, sir?
Yes, sir. Sir?
Any other questions from participants?
Sir, no, sir. I will be sure box also. Sir, no, sir. No question, sir.
Can I have one more question there?
No questions. Please, please.
Sir, now we're getting
Okay,
please,
please.
please, sir. Please, sir.
ஓகே, நான் தமிழ்லயே கேட்டுடுறேன் சார்.
Okay,
இப்போ
sir.
சார்
தமிழ்லயே
அந்த
கேளுங்க,
மூணு
தப்பில்லை.
குணங்களை பத்தி 3 குணங்களை பத்தி எடுத்தார். பட் நமக்கு ஏதோ ஒரு குணத்துல இருப்போம், டாமினேட் பண்ணி இருக்கும், கொஞ்சம் கம்மியா இருக்கும். பட் அடுத்த வாழ்க்கை இதே மாதிரி தானே இருக்கும். அவங்களுக்கு சத்தம் ஜாஸ்தியா இருக்கலாம், ரஜஸ் ஜாஸ்தியா இருக்கலாம். இது ஒண்ணு. இப்ப இதை எப்படி நம்ம ஒருத்தவாட்ட பழகும் போது எப்படி நம்ம கிட்ட இருக்கக்கூடிய கெட்ட குணங்களை கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா குறைச்சிட்டு நல்லதை அவகிட்ட பிராக்டிஸ் பண்றது. அதுக்காக தான் வந்திருக்கோம். ஸோ கோபப்படாம இருக்கிறதோ, இல்ல அவங்களுடைய கருத்தை எதிர்பேச்சு பேசாதைக்கு இருக்கிறதோ, இதையெல்லாம் எப்படி நம்ம மேனேஜ் பண்றது ஒண்ணு. அப்புறம் 2வது நம்மளுடைய கருத்துக்கு எதிரான நிலையில இருக்கிறவங்களோட நம்ம எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்றது, அதை சார்ட்ட கேட்டுக்கணும்.
தேங்க்யூ சார். ஸோ சிம்பிளா அதுக்கு ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ண ட்ரை பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா, நமக்கு இன்னொருத்த என்ன செய்யணும்னு நினைக்கிறானோ அதை நம்ம செஞ்சா போறோம். அது ஒண்ணு. இதுவே உங்களுக்கு ஒரு ஃப்ரேம் ஒர்க் அண்ட் மாடல் டு ப்ராக்டிஸ், ஒரு கைட்லைன் மாதிரி நான் இதை எப்படி பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு புக் வேணும் அப்படின்னா, வெரி ஓல்ட் ப்ராக்டிஸ் வி ஹேட் இன் சைக்காலஜி as a part of psychology and மேனேஜ்மெண்ட், டிரான்சாக்ஷனல் அனாலிசிஸ்னு தனி ஒரு ஃபீல்டே இருந்துச்சு. ஒரு தியோரி அண்ட் தெரப்பி. எப்படி ஒரு கான்வர்சேஷனை காம்ப்ளிமெண்ட்ரியா மாத்துறது. அதுல அந்த ஈகோ ஸ்டேட்ஸை பத்தி சொல்லியிருப்பாங்க. ஐம் ஓகே யூ ஆர் ஓகேன்னு ஒரு புக்கு நீங்க கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்க, எரிக் பர்ன் அவரோட புக்கு. அந்த புக்ல ரொம்ப ரொம்ப கிளியரா சொல்லியிருப்பாங்க, ஹவு டு யூ மேக் திங்ஸ் மோர் காம்ப்ளிமெண்ட்ரி அண்ட் எந்த ஈகோ ஸ்டேட்ல இருந்து அவங்க பேசுறாங்க. லெட்ஸே ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் அந்த புக்லன்னு சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னா, நான் ஒரு கேரிங்கான ஒரு பேரண்ட் ஸ்டேட்லன்னு சொல்றேன், கண்ணா சாப்பிட்டியாப்பா அப்படின்னு நான் கேட்கிறேன். அப்ப அங்கிருந்து நான் எதிர்பார்க்கறது என்னன்னா, ரொம்ப பொலைட்டான ஒரு சன் ஆர் பொலைட்டான சைல்டு கிட்ட இருந்து பதில் எதிர்பார்க்கிறேன். அம்மா நான் சாப்பிட்டேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லணும்னு எதிர்பார்க்கிறேன். நான் சாப்பிட்டேன்னா சாப்பிடலன்னு உனக்கு என்ன அப்படின்னு சொல்லும் போது அந்த கான்வர்சேஷன் இஸ் நாட் காம்ப்ளிமெண்ட்ரி. ஸோ எந்த ஈகோ ஸ்டேட்டுக்கு நம்ம அட்ரஸ் பண்றோம், எந்த ஈகோ ஸ்டேட்ல இருந்து அங்கிருந்து ரெஸ்பான்ஸ் வருது. ஸோ ஹவு டு யூ மேனேஜ் இட், ஹவு டு யூ மேக் இட் காம்ப்ளிமெண்ட்ரி. அந்த புக் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கும். ஐ விஷ் அதுக்கு ஒரு பார்த்தீங்க, உங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப ஹெல்ப்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கும் அந்த புக்கு.
சார் அப்புறமா முடியும் போது வேணா இந்த புக்கை வேணா சாட் பாக்ஸ்ல போட்டுருக்கோம் சார்.
கண்டிப்பா சார். இல்லைன்னா நான் மதன் சார் கூட ஷேர் பண்றேன். ஹீல் ஷேர் இட் வித் யூ.
ப்ளீஸ்
அந்த புக்கை நான் அனுப்பிச்சு விடுறேன்.
அது நான் I will share it with all the participants.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Participants, any questions?
Actually, I also wanted to know one step about the same topic. How do you assess what that other person is in his mental makeup or the current state of mind before we engage into that conversation? I mean, once we understand the state, what you're saying is fine. The caring mother gets a over-controlled response from the son who doesn't want to give details or keep explaining. But on the onset, how do we assess this? What state of mind, especially not in a person whom we already know, while we are getting into the context new?
Right. I was deliberately not trying to answer it directly. For a simple reason, when we wanted to assess someone, we will end up evaluating them. The more we get into the mode of evaluation, we will always bring in the element of comparison. How are they in comparison to someone else I already know, which will stop us from understanding the real person. So that's what we always tell, like to evaluate someone or to judge someone is not something that we should be doing. So understanding starts with acceptance.
Understood. Clear enough.
Because when we expect them to behave the way I want them to behave, they will also have the same expectation. So there comes a problem in any human interaction.
But even when we understand, I mean, we are open to understand them as a whereas. So what are the factors which we be assessing in that sense while we are in the conversation or just beginning the conversation for whatever purpose? Body language is very important, I understand, but
True.
eye contact is important and few other things are important. And I just wanted to know in a virtual sense also how we assess this on even in the physical meeting. Apart from this, what are the other cues which we assess for the same thing, for the same sattva, rajas, tamas state of mind to interact?
One simple thing: active listening without any thought as to how I'm going to answer the query that is going to come up. If I'm going to talk to someone, okay, these are the possible answers I would get from that person. They might ask me this. They might comment in this and this fashion. So if I'm not engrossed into all these things, I can be with that person completely. So which means I am completely in acceptance mode as to what is coming to me. This is the first state of mind we should prepare. So in counseling, we actually ask children to be with this frame.
Yeah. Seeking to understand, seeking to listen first, being open to whatever outcome.
Yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madan sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
So I
close
think
sir.
we don't
Okay,
have
sir.
any questions. We can close.
Sir, no questions, sir.
Thank
No
you.
questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you very much,
tomorrow's
sir.
participants, tomorrow's lecture is by Professor Naachimuthu Tiwari. He's a very excellent and exemplary person in Indian knowledge systems. He's
Yes.
from IIT
Yes, sir.
Kanpur. So I request all of you to join and get benefited from tomorrow's lecture as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.